Welcome back everybody. Let's continue with our port scanner. So, what we did by now is we imported two libraries that we need in order for our program to work. Let's get straight into coding the main program. Okay, so first thing, let's think about it, what we need to logically do in order to discover whether a port is open or closed. Well, we need to establish a connection with the target machine, and then we need to try to connect to the specific port. If we manage to connect, the port is open. If we don't manage to connect, the port is closed. Now there is another thing that can happen, and that is that the port is filtered, but we are not going to cover that at the moment. So, first of all, let's see how we can establish the connection. Here is where we use the socket library. Socket library allows us to establish the connection over internet. So, how can we do that? Well, it's rather easy, and it's something that we will use throughout this course a lot. It's a same scheme of few different lines of code that will allow us to connect to the target machine. So in the first line, we will define a socket descriptor. We do that by specifying the name and then equals socket.socket. Just like this, we define the socket descriptor, and you can name this anything you want. It doesn't have to be named sock, it can be named S, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to leave it on sock. As soon as we do that, we can try to connect to the target machine. So sock.connect, and inside of this connect function we need to specify two open and two closed brackets, and there we need to specify the IP address and the port that we want to connect to. Alright? Now you will see right away that once again this IP address and this port is underlined red. That means that this is not defined. So we need to define what IP address is and what port is. What we're going to do is we're simply just going to create a variable which will be called IP address, and we're going to set this variable to be equal to whatever the user of this program inputs during the running of the program. Now what I mean by that is we're going to use the input function, which allows us to at the runtime specify the IP address that we want to scan. So we're going to prompt to the user of this program something like this: enter target to scan. Okay. Now that we have that, we also need to define the port. And let's say the port will be port 80. It will be a simple integer, so we're going to select it like this. And now our code is good to go. All we are left to do is we are left to wrap this inside of a try and accept rule. And this try and accept rule basically means that we're going to try this, and in case that doesn't work, we're going to try something else, which will be under this accept part. So try and then sock.connect. We are trying to connect to the port, and if we don't manage to connect, we're going to print to the screen that the port is closed. And we can simply just specify port 80 is closed, because we're scanning that port. If we do manage to connect, we can print port 80 is open. Okay, so this is the base part of the program. Let's see whether this works. Now, in order to test this and see whether it works, I'm going to pick a random IP address, which in this case will be the IP address of my laptop. And in your case, you can simply just scan any website on the internet. For example, let's say we go to Firefox, and we can visit any website we want. Now keep in mind, once we actually manage to visit the website, that means that the port 80 is open because we are loading the web page. So let's go to this one. You can choose any you like. I'm going to scan this one. Okay, so let's copy this. This is the name of the website. Let's go right here inside of our terminal, and let's try to run the program. Python 3, and then the name of the program, which in our case, it is Python 3 port scanner.py. It will ask us to enter the target to scan. Now you will notice if you specify like this, so we paste the name of the website and we click here enter, it will tell you that the port 80 is closed. Now why does it tell that? Is the port 80 really closed? Well, not really, since we actually managed to open it right here on our Firefox. Therefore something is wrong with our program. Well, we cannot really specify the link to the actual website, so how can we discover the IP address to this website? Well, we can use something called NSLOOKUP. And we specify the actual link, press here enter, and what this will do, whoops, it says cannot find. Let's just try like this, without the HTTP, www, and then the name of the website. Okay, so here it is. Now we are able to retrieve the IP address to this specific website. What if we copy this IP address and go with this? So copy. And let's clear the screen and run our port scanner once again. Enter target to scan. We paste this. And now we get the correct result. It says port 80 is open. Okay? So for now on, what we did, we created two simple variables. One will host the IP address that we input during the running of the program, and the other one will host the port number 80. So we are not inputting this, we are not changing this. This will simply just stick to 80 for now. Then we try to connect, and if we manage to connect, we print that the port 80 is open. If we don't manage to connect, we print port 80 is closed. Okay, so good for now, we discovered that the port 80 is open on this specific website that we scanned. But this is not really what we want, right? We want to actually scan multiple targets, we want to scan all ports, or as many number of ports as we like. We want to print which port is open, which port is closed. And ideally, we also want to connect to that port and see which software is it running on that open port. Now that port scanner would be a really good one. So let's see in the next few videos how we can implement all of that. We would also like to change this program to also accept the links and not just the IP addresses. So you saw previously we couldn't really specify the link, it gave us the wrong result because it cannot really connect to a link inside of this program. But we also want to make sure that once the user of this program specifies a link such as www.google.com, it will also manage to discover open and closed ports. So we're going to see how we can perform all of that in the next few lectures. For now on, we created the base part and we are ready to continue coding on. Alright, so hope I see you in the next tutorial. Bye!